I know, you've stepped into a portal. It's now 2015 and the Cyanide Simulor and Mirage is once again a bit of a wrecking ball. The recent magnetic changes in Warframe may have just revived one of our old school favourite setups, and because our power levels now are much higher than they were in 2015, it feels even better. But then again, any weapon with Mirage is bloody good since she is a weapons platform and she can buff the feck out of that weapon damage. But her and the Simulor go way back, so let's just check them out, shall we? Back in 2015, this setup was absolutely everywhere, to the point that it was obnoxious. It would actively crash other players' games as well. Host migration was seen as the end game boss back then, and you would have multiple of these setups in most of the missions that you join, public ones, leaving it almost impossible to finish a mission or see anything if your mission didn't crash firsthand. This also was at the height of Steve's kind of particle fixation, where particles were bloody everywhere, but it was heavily nerfed after feedback, and also because back then DE weren't as open with the power creep fantasy element that we have today. The old dev team were much stricter. Nerf mentality was strong. So they changed the Simulor and how it functioned. The explosions and fusing mechanics were altered. Vortexes would now have to stick around for 20 seconds or be manually detonated with your alt fire. Plus, you could only have a certain number of these merged shots on the battlefield at any given time. This meant that you just had to detonate them yourself. But on top of this, the Simulor is magnetic, and magnetic was one of the least desirable status types back then. So once they nerfed the weapon and its Hall of Mirrors synergy, it basically just got left on the shelf. With Jade Shadow's update, that has now changed. Magnetic now deals extra damage to nullifier bubbles, extra damage to shields, but also magnetic stacks on Eximus units with Overguard will now take bonus damage as well, and with shield or Overguard breaks, it will zap those enemies with electricity for added crowd control. So having magnetic on any weapon is a huge benefit right now because it allows you to burn down Eximus units real quick, which are the more annoying enemies for us to kill. Combine that with other forms of maybe armor strip with elemental weapon damage, and the Simulor is now an Eximus killing specialist. Not to mention, it's got energy regen built in. Now this is my Cyanide Simulor Mirage setup against level 225 corrupted Eximus heavy gunners, and it kills them all in seconds. It looks great in the simulacrum, right, but it's not really a mission. However, it works just as effective in Steel Path missions, and its kill per second is really solid. But it is with Mirage, with Eclipse, and I'm also using Jade's armor strip, but it can also work on other frames with weapon buffing potential like Hydroid or maybe a Siren. Granted, it's not as effective because they don't have clones shooting those extra orbs to build vortexes faster, but it still puts work in. Any weapons platform frame with Roar will make this weapon stand out, will definitely make it worth it, but it was built for Mirage. You only have to go back to 2015 to see that. Now, the Cyanide Simulor also has an entropy effect, a syndicate effect once you fill that meter up. But the way this weapon works is 3 or more orbs will then combine to create a vortex. These orbs will kind of suck in towards one another. This vortex will pull ammo, energy, and so on into the middle of it. This vortex will deal damage over time, magnetic damage, and then it will explode after 20 seconds. Or you can manually detonate it. Of course, whatever mods you have equipped is going to amplify that detonation. If you shoot through that vortex while it's open, it will increase your crit chance, your crit damage, and it will give you extra electric damage on top of that. This is after you've already had elemental mods on, so it comes last. There is also an explosion once you fill that meter up, the entropy meter up, that will deal 1000 magnetic damage to all enemies inside 25 meters. This will also replenish 25% of your energy, and it will increase your maximum energy by 25% for 30 seconds. Now, this vortex damage will pass through certain walls and ceilings, so you will see enemies above you or below you taking damage from that vortex effect, and manually detonating the orbs can be used for additional crowd control if you need it, because it will do an electric proc and stagger enemies. Now, to get the Cyanide Simulor, you need to visit Cephalon Suda and buy it once you are at the right rank for that syndicate. And with Mirage, 2 out of Mirage's 4 clones from Hall of Mirrors will also be shooting Simulor orbs, which means more or less one shot with your Mirage once her Hall of Mirrors is active, and you will instantly have a vortex on the field. providing one of these orbs, I guess, hasn't hit something weird and bounced in a different direction. Now, it is worth noting that Mirage's clones' weapons don't do the same damage as what yours will, and certain mods and arcane buffs from your weapon won't carry across to those mirrors. But with the Hall of Malevolence augment, you can bump up their damage by an additional 50%. Also, Eclipse's damage doesn't carry over to your clones either, unless you have her Eclipse augment equipped as well. Now, her clones do give Mirage extra survivability, since enemies will target them instead of her, so it is definitely worth using it. Now, build-wise, this is my Simulor build that I used for this footage. I have modded it for viral and for crit. It's doing magnetic damage as well. It's got multi-shot, explosion radius with that Firestorm mod, and I have got a Bane mod equipped for whichever faction you're going up against. And while the effects of galvanized mods don't carry across to your clones, it is still really nice having that on my base weapon, but you could use Rifle Elementalist instead of Aptitude if you wanted to. Primary Frostbite as the arcane is being triggered by my Sentinel's weapon, which means I'm gaining an additional 90% multi-shot and 120% crit damage, but this might get nerfed out or might get changed, so you could use Merciless if you wanted to, if they do change that. Now, I have got a crit chance, crit damage, and electric riven for one of my builds, but I didn't use that in any of this footage. But if you wanted to have, I guess, a mid-tier setup for this, if you don't have some of the galvanized mods or the prime mods, then you could mod it something like this. Now, for my Mirage build, I'm not running Nourish, which I know a lot of players really enjoy running on their Mirage, since it's going to, I guess, give you that bonus viral damage. I'm really enjoying Jade's Subsume, her Ophanum Eyes, for defense strip and for a slow effect. So I've put that on my Mirage, which means I've had to mod for a bit of range, which isn't really what you do on a weapons platform Mirage. So this is my setup. I have gone for corrosive projection, but only until I form it out with an aura slot, so ignore that. Growing power is probably the aura of choice that I would use there, or maybe brief respite. Archon Vitality will allow Jade's Ophanum Eyes to stack heat stacks on enemies once their defenses are stripped, but any health mod will suffice. Archon Stretch is replenishing my energy based on my Sentinel, my Deriga, zapping enemies with its ability. Again, that might get changed down the line. Adaptation for damage mitigation, Equilibrium for health and energy orbs bouncing off one another, Blind Rage for strength, Hall of Malevolence augment for 50% more damage from clones, Flow for energy, and Continuity for duration. Now, the arcanes I've got equipped on my Mirage, I am using Aegis and Energize for the footage in these missions, but after running the missions with this setup, Energize is definitely a bit overkill, with the Simulor's entropy effect giving me energy back, Equilibrium also energy, Archon Stretch also giving me energy, so probably popping in Molt Augmented, Molt Efficiency, or maybe a Crit Arcane would definitely be a much better addition. Now, the Simulor and Mirage is definitely worth looking at again. It's perfect for killing Eximus units, which are the most annoying types of enemies in Steel Path. Again, it is also worth noting that this isn't as effective on any other Warframe in the game. It will still work on Warframes that can boost your weapon's potential, whether you've subsumed Roar onto that Warframe, or whether it's something like Siren that can do Venom Dose, or an Ember who can put bonus fire damage onto your weapons as well. If you've got also Roar subsumed, it will work, but with the clones, it just works incredibly well. On top of the Eclipse buff that she's giving it, and her clones allowing you to build those vortexes much faster. But let me know in the comment section below what you think of Mirage with the Simulor now. Try it out if you haven't already. Have a great day, and as always, thanks for watching.